At all three levels of the CLAS diplomas, Foundation, Intermediate and Advanced, entrants are required to submit at least one script analysis. For the Foundation diploma, you're expected to analyse one basic script. That is, either formal italic, uncial or foundational hand, and then to use your chosen script in your submissions. The historical model for foundational hand was an English Caroline Minischool in the Ramsey Psalter, and both of the books that I've suggested have good examples with enlargements. The value of a thorough understanding of the script or scripts you will be using for your work is fundamental to good lettering and should not be underestimated. The booklet for each of the three levels of CLAS diploma includes detailed instructions for script analysis, and you should read these carefully. This video is intended to demonstrate the two trickier aspects of analysis, that is, how to estimate the pen angle and the height-weight ratio, which in the booklet is referred to as letter weight or the X height. It's absolutely essential that you have a good, clear example of your chosen script to analyse, where the details of the letter forms can be seen clearly. The majority of the books listed in the diploma booklet under references and source material will have some historical examples in them, but there are two books that are particularly useful. They are Historical Scripts by Stan Knight and the Historical Source Book for Scribes by Michelle Brown and Patricia Lovett. If you have a tutor, they will be able to lend you some good examples to work from. If you can't get hold of any good examples, please contact the Diploma Administrator via the CLAS website for advice. Don't be tempted to use the example given in the Diploma booklet. The example I'm going to use is from Historical Scripts by Stan Knight, and there is an enlarged section of script where I can see more detail. I've taken a copy of this to annotate, and depending on the manuscript you choose, you may need to enlarge a small section of it to see more detail and make analysis easier. Let's deal with pen angle first. The pen angle is the angle at which the pen is held to the horizontal line. Steep and more shallow. The easiest way to determine the pen angle is to look at the entry strokes that begin the downstrokes of the letters and at the axes of round letters. So these are the entry strokes to the letter here, and you can see that this is the angle at which the pen is being held. For the axis of the round letters, I mean this axis here that's going through the letter, where the pen is held like so to make it. First of all, draw in the horizontal lines under the letters. You should use a sharp pencil. I'm going to use a pen so that you can see my lines under camera. Next, rule a line along about 10 of these axes of the round letters or entry strokes. You might also find some of the exit strokes useful for determining this angle. I'll just show you one here. Make sure it intersects with your horizontal, because this is the angle that you're going to measure. Next, with protractor, go along and measure these angles. You can see I've done some already here, and I'll just show you how it's done. So I put the protractor onto the page, making sure it's horizontal, and at the point that your line intersects with the horizontal, and then you read the number of degrees off here, and on this line it's 38 degrees. I'll just show you again. I've had to mark on here where the line intersects with the horizontal because I couldn't quite see it, so I put the protractor on the horizontal and read off the angle here, which is again 38 degrees. And I'll go along and do the rest of them. I've got quite a few lines on here simply because I wanted to show you the process. As I say, probably about 10 will be sufficient. Once you've measured all your angles, we now need to establish which is the predominant pen angle used. I would ignore the lowest and the highest, so I've circled these three. I'm not going to include those in my summary, and I would then quote a range of pen angles, which in this case is 30 to 38, and the average is 34, which is what I would quote on my summary. Next, we'll look at the letter weight or the X height. There are various ways of doing this, and one way is outlined in the booklet. I'm going to show you a slightly different approach, and you can choose which one appeals to you. First of all, I want to demonstrate the extremes of the marks made with a broad nib. Whatever angle you hold the nib at to the horizontal, if you move the pen along that same angle, you will get the thinnest mark that nib is capable of making. If you then move the pen at 90 degrees to this line, you get the thickest mark that the nib will make. It's this last mark that we need to look at within your historical example so that we can establish the width of the nib that was used to make the marks. On this example that I've already annotated with the pen angles, we need to look for marks that have been made at 90 degrees to the predominant pen angle. We've established that as between 30 and 38 degrees on this example. And so it's letters like the A here where we can see that the mark has been made at 90 degrees to the pen angle that's going to give us the widest mark that nib can make. So the A's on here are particularly useful. When you've identified which letters are going to give you the thickest mark that the pen can make, and in this example I'm going to concentrate mainly on the A's, that first G might be useful. Offer up a small piece of paper to the letter and then just mark on the edge where that mark intersects, like so. Then move it along to the next letter. That mark is now on the side of the next letter I'm going to make. We make another mark there. So I've already got 2 nib widths recorded on my piece of paper. The next one I'm going to look at is this A here, and I repeat the process through all the useful letters that I've got on this piece, and for the most part that is just the A's. Okay. That second G doesn't look so useful, but we'll go up to the next A. Of course, we know the pen angles, so we can put the piece of paper parallel to that angle, and try and get it as accurate as possible. Okay, final one, that last A, like so. Now, you're not expected to quote any actual measurements in millimetres. We are simply interested in the nib widths. And of course you're working from an enlargement, most probably anyway. And of course that makes a nonsense of any actual measurements, but we're interested in the ratio of nib widths to the height of the letters, or the height-weight ratio as it's most often referred to. Now that I've established the width of the nib, I can work out the height of the letters, or the X height, in terms of nib widths. On my example, I've drawn in the top line, so we now have the depth of the line of writing established. And I can use my nib width ruler and offer it up to those lines and read off the results. So 3 nib widths wide there. I'm just going to try it at a different point along the line. 3 nib widths there. On this next line, 1, 2, 2.5 nib widths on that line, and a little further up the same there, 2.5. Finally, on the last line of the 3, 2.5 and 2.5. So on my summary, I would say that although the letter heights do vary slightly, the X height overall is approximately 2.5 to 3 nib widths.